Doctors and nurses often work tirelessly in an attempt to attend to patients with injuries of all measures. From broken bones to complicated surgery, these people are the true heroes of the world for their dedication alone, and it's not often enough that their efforts are recognised. Madame Poppy Pomfrey was such a woman whose magical healing knowledge was so vast that she was responsible for the well-being of the entire student body of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry for over 35 years. So let's take a look at this woman's story. This is the life of Poppy Pomfrey. There is little known about Poppy's early life. Due to her accent in the movies, it can be assumed that she was born or spent most of her life in Britain. She most likely attended Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, or I believe that due to her intellect, calm and such skilled expertise, she would have been sorted into Ravenclaw House. However, I'd like to believe that she did embody other traits too. For example, her bravery in staying and fighting in the Battle of Hogwarts embodies the true spirit of a Gryffindor, and her loyalty to Dumbledore and the school itself really embodies a Hufflepuff. So I've placed her in Ravenclaw, but please let me know in the comment section what house you'd see Poppy in. Due to her beginning her career at Hogwarts in the early 70s, it's possible she attended the school at the same time as Pomona Sprout. Poppy may have been inspired to have a profession in medicine due to her being a hands-on person during her schooling days, with the possibility of her aiding several students' injuries and being quite successful at it. She began her career at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry sometime before 1971, being trusted in that year by Headmaster Albus Dumbledore to escort new Gryffindor student Remus Lupin, who was infected with lycanthropy due to a bite from Fenrir Greyback, to the Whomping Willow every full moon. At some point before November 1st, 1981, Madame Pomfrey complimented Dumbledore on a set of earmuffs he had recently acquired. The compliment made Dumbledore blush in such a manner that would only be rivaled when Professor McGonagall compared his magical prowess satisfactorily against Voldemort's. In addition to treating students such as Bill Weasley, whom at various times throughout the same year was injured by cursed ice spreading throughout the castle, an assortment of injuries caused by Quidditch dueling, classroom accidents and general clumsiness kept Poppy very busy, including a student who was transfigured into a teapot. In 1992, after visiting Ruby as Hagrid, Ron Weasley was required to go to Madame Pomfrey after being bitten by the dragon Norberta, formerly known as Norbert. Ron told her that he had been bitten by a dog, but Madame Pomfrey had doubts about it due to the unusual colour of the purple, green and black wound, but in the end, she dropped the subject and continued to treat him after Ron insisted it was a dog. Later on in the year, after Harry had fought Professor Quirrell in the Hogwarts dungeons over the Philosopher's Stone, he spent 3 days unconscious in the hospital wing under Madame Pomfrey's care. She was reluctant for Harry to have any visitors, even Ron and Hermione, as she thought that all Harry needed was bed rest, but she allowed Headmaster Albus Dumbledore to visit him time to time, saying that the reason he was allowed to visit was because he was the headmaster. Later in 1992, Madame Pomfrey administered Skelegro on Harry to regrow his bones in the arm after Gilderoy Lockhart's attempt to fix a broken bone failed miserably. Pomfrey was annoyed that Harry had not been brought straight to her in the first place, as regrowing bones is a lot more difficult than mending them, which she claims that she can do in a heartbeat. In that same year, Hermione Granger ended up in the hospital wing for a month after an accident in an unauthorised high-level potion making, Polyjuice, left her half feline. Apparently the group felt comfortable letting Madame Pomfrey treat her since she would not ask too many questions and just got on with the job in hand. Hermione was allowed visitors, but it bothered Madame Pomfrey somewhat. Hogwarts was also facing potential closure as a monster had been attacking Muggle-born students around the school. It was Madame Pomfrey's job to make sure that these students were found and treated to the best of her ability, though for those petrified she could not treat students without Pomona Sprout's Mandrake potion. She also refused to allow any students to visit the victims, in fear of the attacker returning to finish them off. but allowed Harry and Ron to visit Hermione with Professor McGonagall's permission. Eventually they managed to get the potion made and cured Hermione and several other people. At the end of the year, Madame Pomfrey and Professor Sprout sat at the staff table, and Albus Dumbledore asked the whole school to thank them both for their efforts in helping all petrified students, as well as applauding in Lockhart's departure and Hagrid's return. In 1993, Hogwarts found itself under the questionable protection of the Dementors of Azkaban, horrible creatures whose mere presence was enough to induce the worst feelings and sensations in people. When one took it upon itself to inspect the Hogwarts Express for the escaped criminal Sirius Black, it caused many students great distress and actually caused Harry Potter to pass out due to recalling his mother's death. Madame Pomfrey was summoned to Minerva McGonagall's office to see if Harry was okay and administer treatment. While inspecting the boy, she exchanged a significant look with Professor McGonagall and expressed her disapproval of setting Dementors around the school, anticipating many more collapses all over the place due to the effect they had on people, particularly those who were delicate. Madame Pomfrey recommended some chocolate, but was surprised and very pleased to hear that he had already been given some by Professor Remus Lupin. During the 1993 Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Hufflepuff, Pomfrey tended to the injured, which included Harry Potter, who fell over 50 feet due to the Dementors being on the pitch. At the end of the school year, Harry, Ron and Hermione had all endured injuries following the events that took place when Sirius Black returned to Hogwarts and revealed Peter Pettigrew to be alive. The three all woke up in the hospital wing after Ron broke his leg in the previous evening, and both Harry and Hermione had passed out from the Dementor attack along with Sirius Black. Madame Pomfrey was not surprised to have the three in her care once again. When several students, including Fred and George Weasley, decided to age themselves up a little in order to be eligible to enter the 1994 Triwizard Tournament, Madame Pomfrey had to remove the beards which they had grown in attempting to cross Dumbledore's age line. She was most annoyed by the students' actions and treated them with regret. She felt that the Triwizard Tournament would bring the school nothing but grief. During the same school year, it was Madame Pomfrey's job to tend to the injuries that the four Triwizard champions, Harry Potter, Victor Krum, Fleur Delacour and Cedric Diggory received during the course of the tournament, and expressed her distaste for the dragons for the first task. She was also responsible for taking the body of Cedric Diggory to the hospital wing after he had been killed by Peter Pettigrew under the order of Lord Voldemort during the last Triwizard task. Later, after being questioned by Albus Dumbledore on the details of the incident, Harry Potter was also sent to the hospital wing, where Madame Pomfrey prescribed a dreamless sleep potion for him in order to get him some ample rest. Pomfrey was also present when Minister for Magic Cornelius Fudge visited the wing. The minister refused to believe that Voldemort had returned. Therefore, Professor Snape used his dark mark as proof. In 1996, Hogwarts was under the control of the Ministry. Albus Dumbledore had escaped after facing potential imprisonment in Azkaban, and Dolores Umbridge had taken over. Minerva McGonagall, Madame Pomfrey's close friend, was hit by 4 stunning spells to the chest by Aurors, while Umbridge was trying to sack and remove Hagrid from Hogwarts, very nearly killing her in the process. Madame Pomfrey was deeply shocked by this attack and was unable to help Minerva. She transferred her to St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries, where she could receive better treatment by qualified healers. Also, after the Dumbledore's Army's traitor Marietta Edgecombe was struck with Hermione Granger's parchment jinx, Madame Pomfrey could not do the slightest in improving the pustules instilled on Marietta's face. She was stuck with this reminder of her betrayal into the next school year, where not even a heavy layer of makeup could obscure the marks. Madame Pomfrey considered resigning in protest after the attack, but she did not, as she cared and feared for the students too much. She subsequently helped treat the assorted injuries that Luna Lovegood, Neville Longbottom, Ginny Weasley, Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley sustained in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, including a broken ankle, broken nose and the effects of an unknown curse on Hermione, which, if cast verbally, could have been seriously fatal. 1 year later, in 1997, Madame Pomfrey examined Katie Bell after she had been cursed by an opal necklace. She could not help Katie and transferred her to St. Mungo's for a specialist's opinion. Madame Pomfrey also tended to Ron after he had almost been poisoned after drinking a glass of mead, which had been poisoned by Draco Malfoy in an attempt to kill Albus Dumbledore. She also helped Harry after his skull was cracked open by a bludger which had been hit by Cormac McLaggen during a Quidditch match. The injury was mended in an instant, but she kept him in overnight as to ensure he did not undergo anything strenuous. She also treated Draco Malfoy after he was struck by Harry's Sectum Sempra curse, shortly after Severus Snape gave the victim emergency treatment before bringing him to the matron. Later in the year, the Death Eaters attacked Hogwarts, and several students and Aurors were caught up in the Battle of the Astronomy Tower, a battle which resulted in the death of Headmaster Albus Dumbledore. Madame Pomfrey tended to the wounds and injuries of those in the battle. Bill Weasley was injured the worst of all, as werewolf Fenrir Greyback in human form had savaged and bitten him, causing Bill to be badly scarred. Pomfrey noted that there is no cure for werewolf bites and scars, and Lupin, being a werewolf himself, assumed that Bill would not take the form of a true werewolf since he might not be entirely infected with lycanthropy, as Fenrir Greyback was not fully transformed into his werewolf form, though he could develop lupine qualities. Since it was a unique case, neither Madame Pomfrey nor the others knew what would become of Bill when he awoke. When he did eventually awake, the only change was that Bill developed a liking for raw meat. Shortly afterwards, Madame Pomfrey was one of the hundreds of witches and wizards who attended the funeral of Albus Dumbledore. During the funeral, she paid her respects to the passing of a great wizard, friend, and colleague. She was devastated by his death, something which brought her to tears after Harry Potter told her of his demise at the hands of former colleague and potions master Severus Snape. Following the death of the former headmaster, Lord Voldemort had taken control of Hogwarts and the Ministry of Magic. He had appointed Severus Snape as headmaster. The tensions and punishments imposed on students were severe under the cruel Death Eaters, Amicus and Electo Caro as teachers. Students were noted to be in and out of the hospital wing very often. In particular, Seamus Finnegan's face was almost unrecognisable with the amount of bruises. Later on in that year, Harry, Ron and Hermione returned in search of the final Horcrux in Hogwarts, triggering a battle. The staff and students defended the school against Voldemort and his Death Eater army bravely, while Harry searched for the Horcrux, with Poppy herself engaging and defeating a female Death Eater in the Great Hall. At the end of the battle, students and staff alike were injured or even killed, and Madame Pomfrey tended to them all. By 2014, Pomfrey had retired or was thinking of retiring, since Hannah Abbott applied for the position of matron at Hogwarts. Regardless, either because she decided not to leave, or because she ended her retirement, Poppy Pomfrey was working at Hogwarts in the year 2020. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your support. Everyone, notifications of uploads are more important than ever, so please, if you haven't already, turn those notifications on to make sure you're notified the moment my video goes live. Making videos is what I love to do, it's my dream and my passion. However, it does cost time and money to produce this content, so if you have $1 to spare to support me on Patreon in exchange for some exclusive unseen content, then you can click the Patreon link below or at the end of this video. Please only support me if you can afford it. And make sure to follow me on Instagram at InstaDNJ and on Twitter at PotterFolklore. Check out my other videos appearing on screen, and please make sure, most importantly, to hit that subscribe button. Thanks again everyone, and please have a great day.